Hi guys, welcome to Karkona Cricket Cast. I'm your host Pratham. I'm joined by my mate Rohan, and today we're going to be discussing the first qualifier between Delhi Capitals and Chennai Super Kings. And Rohan, I'm just going to start off by saying this might have been the best match of the IPL that we've seen so far, right?
It was certainly the most chaotic match.
It was, but that's what makes the IPL so good.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, that's half the reason anyone watches the IPL. At least from a non-Mumbai fan's perspective.
Yeah, no, absolutely, right? Because for listeners of our show, we actually mentioned the previous match, right? The one before the playoffs, the quarter-final, as we dubbed it, right? Between Delhi and CSK as the best match of the IPL, right? And
then, of course, we take a short break because of stuff outside of our control.
Yeah, and then we come back
in. These guys managed to play a better match.
And a huge factor behind that, guys, was the pitch, right? It was played at the same ground, Dubai Sports Complex. And the ground that Delhi and Chennai played in the prior match was considerably more tackier, difficult to bat on.
Definitely more tacky. Definitely offered a lot more to spinners.
Yeah.
Than this one did.
Yeah, but also a pitch that, if we're being honest, Rowan, just wasn't good in basic ways. A lot of inconsistent bounce, slow outfield, right? Outside of the pitch, even.
Yeah.
So this one, on the other hand, a dry pitch, right? But a hard pitch, right? So you got value. The ball came onto the bat nicely if you played a shot, and then you would get value for the shots too. It was a relatively fast outfield.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad. We've seen some bad outfields in this IPL.
Sharjah.
The ground crew, by the way, they did a fantastic job in this match.
Yeah, absolutely, man. The batsmen who did get in played some really good cricket, and the bowlers who bowled actually bowled to tight plans. Also bowled very. Also managed to extract every bit of life they could from the surface, the majority of them. So credit due for both sides producing a really compelling match. And on that note, guys, we are actually going to share the scorecards for these matches so you guys can get a bit of a refresher of what happened, and then we're going to come back and give our thoughts. So, coming back to the match specifics itself, I thought the way the match started, right, Rowan, was exemplary, because we've been crying out for a Shaw storm, as I like calling it. We're playing in the UAE.
You've been calling out for that. I have not. But I wanted him to have a quiet match, not cause any trouble, not make my team have to do too much.
Yes, but if the Sachin ripoff is going to play in innings of quality, he might as well do it in the country where Sachin played.
Well, of course, the famous Desert Storm and all of that. But did it have to be this match? Could it have not been like the last one? I didn't want us to deal with this in the playoffs. I want a low-stress playoff scenario. I want us to not have to chase that near 180 scores because of this one guy who just decides, yeah, you know what, I'm just going to do everything in the power play for 6.
He played magnificently, though, mate.
It was awesome.
Yeah, individually,
he managed to get Delhi out of trouble. Just individually, on his own.
Yeah, at the half mark, I remember the score was 80 for 3, and he had scored 60 of the runs. That was the extent of how
incredible. Because it's just like, why? How? Stop! Don't do this.
Yeah, and specifically, right, what I thought was so good about him is he actually learned some lessons from Dhawan than the night before when the last time these two sides faced, right? Delhi faced Chennai. Dhawan was their top scorer, and he ended up getting a 40-odd or 39, I think it was. But again, both of them really were very crafty, especially in how they exploited a slightly out of form Deepak Chahar. Form has waned as the tournament has gone on, right? Which is the concerning sign for CSK. But specifically why Shaw was so good today, right? He gave him an over, right? I mean, he played him on his merits for an over, and then he recognized, like Dhawan did in the previous match, right? They targeted Chahar's second over because they saw, okay, this guy isn't able to swing it or seam it particularly well. He's not particularly quick. So if we go over the top against him, right, or play the aerial shot, right, we are, we will be able to clear
it's a relatively lower risk shot.
Exactly. And it's critical too because in the last match, right, Shaw got out to Chahar playing a shot over the top and misjudging the bounce and so forth, right? But after a bit of a shaky side today where he was misjudging a bounce a bit more, he settled down. He was able to gauge the bounce on a pitch which did offer some bounce, right, because it was hard. And he played the shots brilliantly. He was able to thread the gaps through the offside, especially, and by targeting Chahar and taking 18 runs off one of his overs, right, what they did is they essentially negated the chance of a wicket falling or a lot of wickets falling in that initial power play. But then we got 80 for 3 it was when he got dismissed, and we had a really weird decision at number 4. We're
gonna have to talk about both teams' options at number 4
because they were weird decisions.
They were just dumb. They weren't weird. They were just dumb.
Specifically for Delhi, right, guys? They ended up picking Axar, and Axar was not a very good choice in this pitch, right? We already mentioned the extra bounce, and Axar is a batsman who's a very typical subcontinental batsman. He doesn't really play the shots that are square of the wicket, horizontal bat shots, if you will, particularly well. He just doesn't get in the position to stay on the back foot well enough to transfer his weight while playing those shots. And today, if you see the shot that he got out to, right, the effort to try to hit, Ali for 6 too. It was off a delivery where he was trying to camp on the back foot to get as much momentum to do that, right? So it was a poor decision to send him out at 4. I get that they were trying to make sure the momentum was kept while Shaw was on, and so they sent a lower order batsman to hit. But Axar is not like Jadeja, right? He doesn't really hit that many.
No, I believe Jared Kimber referred to him as, oh god, what was it? He had a phrase basically saying that he's sort of like, he's the great value Jadeja or something like that. But it's like, he's the Walmart Jadeja. That's what he is. Because he's almost as good as Jadeja, but he's just a little bit cheaper.
Yeah, and that comes with his power hitting ability as well, right? Yeah. He just doesn't have that bat swing of Jadeja, so I don't think it was a sensible decision. If the idea was to keep the momentum.
I could understand the decision making. Also, if to be fair, Ponting I think may have taken a sort of page out of Fleming's book from a few years back, where they sent someone like Axar, but who could actually power hit, like Harbhajan specifically, whenever the CSK had a top order collapse, just to slow things down a little bit and just play sensibly, not.
Yeah, but it clearly
without letting the run rate get out of hand. But in this case, it makes no sense. He's not being used effectively in that role, and it just didn't make any tactical sense.
But fortunately, they were rescued a little bit, right, by some fantastic batting on one end.
2 left-handed tyros just hitting everything out.
Yeah, that's one way of putting it, Rowan. Head punt, and then my boy, the next Lara. I'm gonna continue saying that, Rowan. I know you'll cringe.
We had the next Sachin who actually batted well. The next Lara doing what he always does, which is bat really, really pretty, really, really well. And then immediately, when you think, oh god, this guy could win this match on his own.
Get out a dumb shot.
He reminds you that he's not actually Brian Lara.
Yeah, get out a dumb shot. Yes, but the duo of Punt and Hetmeyer came to the crease, and I thought, Rowan, only one way to put it, just a stupendous batting display from both of those guys, right?
Rishabh Pant was hitting 6s with one hand. I think that's all you need to say.
Yeah.
Objectively, that's all you need to say. He hit a 6 over long on.
Yeah.
With one hand. To the far side of the ground.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
With one hand.
And that's one part that's going to get mentioned. Another part that won't get mentioned, especially because Punt and Hetmeyer, to put it politely, aren't the fittest players in cricket going around.
At least Punt has the excuse that he is playing the most physically demanding position.
A wicketkeeper, yeah.
Yeah.
Hetmeyer, not so much. But what I thought was impressive.
Hetmeyer's problems are well documented.
But the point being, right, that Punt especially, right? I thought he ran twos pretty well at the end of the innings.
Like you can't fault Rishabh Pant for sort of his effort. He will always give 100%.
Yeah, and even though he there are a lot of things to work on even between his running the wickets, he just tries to run that first one really hard. It's something actually he probably learned from Dhoni growing up, because Dhoni used to do that very well.
Dhoni still does that very well.
Exactly. But point being, right, like, even though he wasn't quick between the wickets today, it was that initial effort to make sure especially against someone who is notoriously not a very good runner between the wickets in Hetmyer, or quick runner I should say, or somebody who likes running and getting singles, let's put it that way, right? For him to be able to get that many twos and get those singles when he needed to was a commendable effort. Heady, on the other hand, showed why he's heady, and it all stems.
Shimron Hetmyer is simultaneously all of the good things about West Indian cricket and all of the bad things about West Indian cricket.
Yeah. Because he can be daft, he can be irresponsible.
He's simultaneously daft and brilliant.
Exactly. Because the daftness was seen with the shot that he got out to Bravo. Like, dude, you didn't need to. You didn't need to slog that out with two fielders in the deep the way that you did, especially with the sort of delivery that you ended up going after that was a bit straighter. You could have played it compared to what Bravo was bowling. You could have played it in other locations. But the brilliance of Hetmyer was shown otherwise, right? Because what was so impressive, and this is not the first match he did it. He did it in the previous DC versus CSK match as well, guys, which is why I think it's really important to point this out. He knows that Bravo is going to try to bowl the majority of the time wide Yorkers. And a lot of those are going to be off pace, right? So given the fields that Dhoni had set, right, there were two places that he knew he could get runs if he played some shots. They were going to be hard, but he knew he would get boundaries specifically in two places. A, behind square of the wicket, because there were some fielders that Dhoni had set in behind the square of the wicket that were wider, that were deep, and then finer that were less deep, right? So he knew if he could hit it particularly fine and
if you threaded that gap, there was runs to be had.
And what does he do? He gets a 4.
Threads the gap.
He threads the gap.
He should not admire. He's a madman, and he will do things like this.
Yeah. And so then what do you have with the field, right? Dhoni has two men out in the deep, right? Long on and deep mid wicket, right? And they're both wider. And after Hetmyer plays that particular, he plays that particular shot, Dhoni actually keeps it a little bit wider, right? It was like at 55 meters, I think, the gap between 50, whatever it was, right? And it gets a slightly bit wider, right? What does he do? The moment he sees it's a little bit wider, he hits it and bisects it. He hits an aerial shot. He bisects it precisely between those two of long on and deep mid wicket and gets a 4. That is called brilliant
placement. Being Hetmyer.
Yeah, exactly. It's called being Shitmore and Hetmyer, and it's the kind of brilliant placement and toying with the bowlers, right? And using power and tactfulness, right? That Lara used to do so well against international bowlers, and it's why this guy.
In a bit.
But it's why this guy is so special, and it's why this guy today played what could have been, before his dismissal, a match-winning knock.
Before we move on to talk about probably the best chase, at least the most entertaining chase of the IPL.
Yeah.
I do want to give a shout out to Josh Hazelwood, who bowled really well, and it's probably going to get buried because
high scoring match.
I think it's fair to say in this match, batting was on display.
Yeah, high scoring match. The flair and display from guys like Pant, Hetmyer, and so forth. It's going to bury the guy who's just the good old Australian
ridiculously
bowler. They needed a more mature version of Ingi in a way, right? And a tall bowler, right? 6'3 plus, who hits the deck hard, gets a 135 to 145, can seam it both ways, and gets that extra bounce. And Josh Hazelwood showed why that was the case, why he was picked for CSK today. His 2 wickets were really crucial ones, and I think the main one that I would sort of really focus upon is the dismissal to Dhawan, right? Because again, setting a batsman up, right, is we talk about it all the time. We talk about how good bowlers are not only skilled, but they're also intelligent, and they know how to use their particular skill sets, right? So Josh Hazelwood realized the pitch had some bounce on it because it was a hard surface. So what does he do? He knows that Dhawan struggles against the short ball historically. So what does he do? He bowls a couple that are back of a length and drags Dhawan out his hands, essentially Dhawan's hands, outside towards that off stump with the odd one that's wide to just disguise it to not make it too obvious, right? And in that first over that he bowls, right? And it's crucial, guys, because what ends up happening is Dhawan ends up nicking one to Hazelwood where his hands are away from his body while he's playing it to a ball that seems a little bit away, and the other ones would largely, some of them were scramble seam. They weren't seeming as much, right? So again, it's that setup and mindset, right? Getting a batsman camped on the back foot so that his front foot goes nowhere, like Dhawan did when he was trying to play that little drive shot that he did, right? Without much footwork, just playing with his hands away from the body. So again, it's just that insight of knowing how to do that and setting your batsman, and a key batsman too, because Shikhar Dhawan is one of the top scoring players of this IPL, and he was their top scorer in the last match that they won. But talking about from one great strike bowler that CSK have got, now coming to the Delhi innings, to the great strike bowler Delhi have got against Chennai.
He's just Morkel 2.0. That's what he is.
Right? Norke
is Morkel. Morning Morkel 2.0. He's better in like every way.
The guy who did produce a monstrous delivery, though, was Anrik Norke, man. That 147k delivery.
He thinks that he finally gets away from having to deal with South African pacers like this. And then all of a sudden, one of them shows up, bowls a ball like that, and you're just like, ugh.
Yeah, because it was brilliant, guys, right? It wasn't just the pace, it was also the movement. It nipped back just at the last minute. It was, as we said, really quick, but also the length, right? It was precisely the length that you needed to hit the top of the stumps, right?
It was just so good. And it's frustrating because I know that this guy's going to torment not only CSK, but also basically every team in the world. And this may not even be his best wicket.
No. He's bowled better than this, which is the frightening part, right? But he gave Delhi a perfect start in the CSK innings. But there was, like the Delhi innings, there was a really good opener playing besides him who really sort of took the momentum in a way and made sure that there was stability in this chase. While Shaw,
Shaw was explosive.
Yeah.
Ruturaj Gaikwad was calm.
Yes.
And measured. He never put himself in risk, didn't play low percentage shots. He basically did everything that you're supposed to do as a batsman. I've got us into a position from which we can possibly win this match.
Yeah.
If we play our cards right. I'm going to go and start accelerating.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I thought he was excellent in that regard, right?
Because Stephen Fleming makes some inexplicable decisions.
Yeah, and we'll get onto one of those shortly. But before that, I do also want to give a mention to Robin Uthappa, right? Robin Uthappa, obviously, there's been a debate with whether he should be picked at that number 3 slot over Raina, who's been CSK and actually the IPL's leading run scorer.
It's a tough decision from an emotional standpoint, right? As a CSK fan, Suresh Raina has been everything. He has been he's our leading run scorer.
Yeah,
right. He's the leading run scorer in the IPL. He's our club's. He's the team's leading run scorer. It's just hard to say. Yeah, we need to get rid of Suresh Raina, or his time is up. It's just it's difficult to do that emotionally as a CSK fan.
But Robin Uthappa showed why, unlike Raina, he still merits a place in the side. And critically, it was funny too, because there are a lot of parallels that we've been finding between this match and the previous CSK versus Delhi Capitals match, and. Yeah. This was one of those innings which also was similar in that mode, because it was actually very similar to Rayudu's innings in the previous match, right? That CSK played against Delhi. And specifically how Robin, like Rayudu in that particular match, shuffled a bit before the ball was delivered, got onto an off-stump guard. What it allowed him to do is it allowed him to be able to pick the gaps more easily, square of the wicket. But unlike Rayudu as well, what he was also able to do really well is that he was able to, because he was going on that off-stump guard, he really exploited the gap, the shortest side of the ground, right? Which is the behind square of the wicket on the leg side for him as a right-hander. And he was able to deflect the ball really nicely and get boundaries through that. He was also able to hit over the infield against pacers, right? Which is super important, right?
Yeah. even when he gets out, right? The way he gets out, it takes a great play by Shreyas Iyer to get him out. It takes them. The process is correct, right?
Exactly.
He gets out not because he hit it poorly. He didn't get it perfectly, but it was good enough to go all the way to the boundary. Probably, if Shreyas Iyer doesn't make a pretty great play to save that boundary and take the catch, it's going for 6.
Exactly. No, and I think that's why Robin Uthappa really,
he's earned his spot in the squad going forward.
Yeah.
And it shows that there is some hope beyond the old guard.
Yeah, and really Robin Uthappa and Gaikwad really creating that opportunity for CSK to chase this down, only to at the time look like it was going to be squandered by 2 baffling innings. I mean, if you want to call them that, they lasted 4 deliveries.
I'm honestly not that mad about Thakur coming in. Well, I'm mad about Thakur coming in. I'm not mad about what Thakur did, because at least Thakur had the sensibility. I don't know what I'm doing here. So I'm just going to see if I can hit anything for 6. And it immediately failed. Which is like, you know what? Fair enough. It's not your fault.
Yeah, no, like Axar, guys, this decision, even if you tactically
sense.
the idea,
even with context, it makes no sense.
Exactly, because tactically, right? I'm sure that Delhi decision, the idea was to make sure the momentum was on, right?
Yeah.
But the momentum wasn't on, and it wasn't going to be on because Thakur fatally.
Thakur's a hack.
He's a hack, but more importantly, he's a hack who doesn't pick slower balls. Tom Curran, this guy who Delhi picked, he can't disguise that back of the hand slower ball. It's very obvious to everyone. And so Thakur coming out, the one guy in the CSK lineup compared to someone like
power, and it can't hit for.
Compared to somebody like Bravo or who bowls those balls and can pick them from the hand. I've seen him do it in Ashes.
No, I mean, he's done it before.
Jadeja, who is able to anticipate that really well,
and is actually a class batsman.
Yeah. To pick Thakur makes no sense. That was a terrible decision. And then Raidu not taking the singles, the first 2 balls.
Which is so frustrating because Raidu used to be really good at that. I'm like, just take the single. Just take the single. They're giving you the single. They're literally saying.
And the one time he gets a single, he goes for a double. And then he gets out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those 2 wickets were probably the worst parts of CSK in this particular match, right? But it really, guys, it put CSK in a bit of strife, right? Because they're now they had 11 run rate at that point after those.
Yeah, it was like 11 runs and over, and it was over 11 runs and over. It was 11.7 at one point.
Yeah.
So Moeen and Gaikwad, Moeen comes in and he and Gaikwad are like, okay, we have to go for it. We have to score. We have to score at least 2 boundaries every over from now on.
And to Moeen's credit, he hits a couple of really good boundaries. Again, sensible cricket. He targeted the right bowlers, but then he gets out. Onto the takeaways, right, for both sides in this match. And I think the 2 major ones, right. First, really obvious one, Rohan. If you want to promote batsmen up the order to maintain the momentum of an innings, pick the right batsman.
Yes, I think. And it's frustrating to see this because these are 2 of the best coaches in the IPL who should know this. These 2 guys should know better. They should just know better than this.
Yeah, they should know better. And specifically, right, they had ready-made placements to come in at 4, especially if they wanted to either solidify the innings at that point because of the loss of wickets, or if they wanted to keep that momentum up, right? And so Jadeja should have come in at 4 instead of Shardul.
If they wanted to do that, yeah. Jadeja or Bravo, send someone who can actually hit the ball.
Yeah, and can construct an innings, right? Who's not just going to go wildly out there slogging, right?
They're not going to pull a Shardul and just go, okay, let's go hit the first ball I see for try to go for 6 on it.
Right, and likewise, Axar at 4 makes much less sense than Hetmeyer at 4, right? Because Hetmeyer is the sort of batsman who, if he gets going, right? Yes, he is more of the kind of batsman, unlike Jadeja, who.
He is a batsman. Let's put it like that. Despite his, like it would have made more sense if you moved Tom Curran up, for example.
Even Tom Curran would have been a better pick than Axar just because of his ability to hit the ball with a long handle, right? So the point being, pick the right batsman, guys. Batsman, if you want to play that sort of role and promote somebody up the order, right? And then the other thing I would say, just specifically for Delhi, right? don't pick a six bowling option just because you have a six bowling option that you want, right? I get it. Workload management is really important. Delhi have been playing with 5 frontline bowlers, and they're worried that maybe some of those bowlers might not be fit and firing for upcoming matches. But the thing is, and then the other thing is, right?
And again, this is something that CSK did, right? CSK, all the other teams, they rotated during the season.
Yeah, Delhi didn't, and so I get the decision, right? But the point being, right, you can't pick a sixth bowler who you think is especially young and inexperienced that's going to leak you those runs, right? Fortunately for Delhi, they're not going to have to worry about this because in upcoming matches, especially if Marcus Stoinis heals properly, right, they have a like-for-like replacement. He's better with the bat too, and more experience, so he can bowl those slower balls and disguise them better, both in the middle overs and at the death, right? But it's something they need to keep in mind, right, going forward. And Rowan, on that note, I think we should sort of sign off. Once again, guys, been a great match. We're going to be coming back tomorrow for the Qualifier 2 between
the first eliminator.
Yeah, the first eliminator. We're going to come back for that match. And till then, guys, take care, stay safe, and see us tomorrow.
See you.